China's solar module manufacturing capacity hit 1.8 terawatts in 2025, roughly 5 times the entire world's annual solar demand of 350 gigawatts per China's National Energy Administration data reported by PVknowhow. That single number explains why more than 50 solar companies along the supply chain filed for bankruptcy in 2025 alone, per the South China Morning Post's reporting in June 2025. China built the largest clean energy machine in human history, and it is bleeding out. The country added more renewables last year than the rest of the planet combined. It also commissioned more new coal plants than it has in a decade, and its solar industry lost an estimated $60 billion in a single year. Those 3 facts sit next to each other, and almost nobody is connecting them. Because when you do connect them, something shifts in how you see global energy markets, climate targets, and where capital flows next. There is one number buried in this story that suggests China may have already crossed a line that changes everything. We will get to it. Markets move in cycles, booms attract capital, capital creates supply, and supply eventually destroys the price that attracted the capital in the first place. Everyone who has watched a housing bubble knows this feeling, but picture it differently. Imagine a family that needs 1 kitchen. They build 5. Each kitchen is better than the last. The appliances are world-class. The cost per meal drops to almost nothing. But 4 of those kitchens sit empty, and the family is broke from the construction loans. That is China's solar industry in 2025. In the first quarter alone, 31 listed Chinese solar firms posted a combined $1.7 billion net loss per M&G Investments analysis. 5 of the biggest names in the business, Longai, Trina, Jinko, JA Solar, and Tongwei, cut 87,000 jobs. That is roughly 31% of their combined workforces. Polysilicon prices have been below production cost for more than a year, per the China Non-Ferrous Metals Industry Association. Beijing's Ministry of Industry convened 14 leading solar firms in July 2025 to demand an end to what they called low-price disorderly competition. Jefferies analyst Alan Lau estimated that 20 to 30% of all manufacturing capacity must be eliminated before the survivors can turn a profit. The kitchens were beautiful, but nobody needed 5 of them. And here is the part that complicates everything. Even while the industry bled out, the installations kept breaking records. What China actually built on rooftops and in deserts last year is a number that rewrites the energy map. That is next. China added more than 430 gigawatts of new wind and solar capacity in 2025, per official National Energy Administration data released in February 2026. Feel how that number lands. That is 6 to 7 times larger than total US utility-scale power additions across all technologies for the entire year, per EIA projections cited by carbon credits. In wind energy alone, China added 119 gigawatts, nearly 3/4 of every wind turbine installed on Earth that year, per IRENA's Renewable Capacity Statistics 2026 report. Picture 2 wind turbines going up every single hour around the clock for 365 days. Picture a solar panel surface area of 20 football fields installed every hour. That is what happened. Electricity from renewables in China reached roughly 4 trillion kilowatt-hours in 2025, per Xinhua, citing the NEA. That exceeds the combined power consumption of all 27 EU member states. Investment matched the physical scale. China spent $625 billion on clean energy in 2024, 31% of the global total, per Ember's China Energy Transition Review 2025. Bloomberg NEF puts 2025 spending even higher at $800 billion. The sheer volume is undeniable. If you are getting value from this kind of research, subscribe so the next one shows up in your feed. But here is what the raw installation numbers do not capture. The grid underneath all of this cannot keep up, and the consequences are already measurable. That is where the story gets uncomfortable. Nobody likes being caught off guard. And this next part catches almost everyone off guard. In the same year, China installed more green energy than ever. It also commissioned 78 gigawatts of new coal power, the highest annual total in a decade, and more than India added in the previous 10 years combined, per CREA and Global Energy Monitor's reporting in February 2026. More than 50 large coal units of 1 gigawatt or greater came online in a single year. New coal project proposals surged to a record 161 gigawatts. The question is not whether this is contradictory. It is. The question is why it happened. Part of the answer is energy security. Coal is the one fossil fuel China does not need to import through vulnerable sea lanes. Part of it is bureaucratic momentum from a 2022 permitting spree, triggered by real power shortages. But here is the crack that matters most for anyone watching this market: curtailment. In the first half of 2025, the solar curtailment rate nearly doubled to 5.7%. Wind curtailment rose to 6.6% per NEA data cited by Bloomberg and the Japan Times. Clean energy is being wasted because the grid cannot absorb it. Ultra-high voltage transmission lines take about 5 years to build, per Fitch analyst Maggie Shea. There is unlikely to be a significant decrease in curtailment before 2027, she noted. State Grid of China committed over $90 billion in grid spending for 2025 alone. But the geography is daunting. Most wind and solar resources sit in Western China. Demand centers are thousands of kilometers east along the coast. Remember the line I mentioned earlier, the one China may have already crossed? It has to do with batteries, and it changes the math on everything I just told you. This is the kind of research that takes 40 hours to build and 8 minutes to watch. Every week, this channel breaks down the macro forces moving energy, markets, and capital, sourced to the original data. No clickbait, no fluff. You just watched us pull from CREA, Carbon Brief, IRENA, the IEA, Ember, and half a dozen more primary sources to build a picture you will not find in a headline. If that is the kind of clarity you want showing up in your feed every week, subscribe, ring the bell, and the link is right there in the description. Remember the line I said, China may have already crossed. Here it is. In 2025, China's energy storage capacity, mainly batteries, grew by a record 75 gigawatts. That outpaced the rise in peak electricity demand, 55 gigawatts for the first time ever, per Carbon Brief's analysis published in February 2026. Battery costs fell 45% in 2025 alone, per Grist's reporting in April 2026. That is on top of a 20% drop the year before. In December 2025 alone, China added more than 65 gigawatt hours of battery storage, exceeding the total installed in the United States for the entire year, per the Institute for Energy Research. When storage grows faster than demand, the grid math changes. Curtailment becomes solvable. Coal plants become stranded assets faster than anyone modeled. And Carbon Brief's data shows China's CO2 emissions have now been flat or falling for 21 consecutive months, starting March 2024. For the first time, the main driver was not an economic slowdown. It was clean energy growth. China may have passed peak emissions 6 years ahead of schedule. The solar industry is in crisis. Coal is still being built. The grid is straining. And yet, when you step back, and look at the storage curve alongside the emissions curve. The moment you realize these two lines are crossing is the moment the entire story reshapes itself. That is the number that matters. If this kind of thinking is what you came here for, the next one drops soon.